Hey folks, changing the pace up from battleships and cruisers a bit, I've got another match here in the Grumyashi, the Tier 5 Soviet Premium Destroyer. And I've ended up on Fault Line, which is a pretty common map to get in these sort of low to mid tier games. It does pop in high tiers as well, but you start to see some more maps there. We're up against an enemy team that has a carrier but less battleships than us. They also have one less destroyer, but they have an extra cruiser, or sorry, two extra cruisers. So the matchmaking is not exactly symmetrical. While the enemy will have air superiority in the fact that we don't have a carrier, we do also have two US cruisers, which might serve to balance that out a bit. Now, although we have more destroyers and more battleships, this doesn't really mean much. Battleships can put out a lot of damage if they're driven competently, but a lot of the pubbies that play them aren't really capable of swinging a game one way or the other on their own. And so it doesn't really matter if your team has less battleships than the enemy. What really makes a difference in this game is aircraft carriers and cruisers in terms of team balance. Now, this may change in the future as they rebalance certain classes and certain ships, but at the moment, cruisers are pretty much the do-everything ship, especially with the absurd chance of setting things on fire with HE. The Cleveland is basically just like pouring gasoline on a fire, and the Atlanta's like that too if it gets within range of something. So they can take down battleships, they can take down carriers, they can take down destroyers, obviously they can handle other cruisers. There's really nothing that a cruiser can't competently handle. The only downside being that they are fragile, and so if it does get focused by a lot of guns or some big guns, it's going to go down quite quickly. Now the carriers, on the other hand, it should be pretty obvious why they're a serious contender in terms of team balance. If one team has a carrier and the other doesn't, or one team has more carriers or higher tier carriers, it just means that they have more aircraft in the air able to do damage, and the other team really don't have much to counter it. The only time this isn't really as much of a thing is if the carrier is put up against a team with no enemy aircraft carriers and he's carrying a fighter loadout, because in that case he's basically useless. But most carriers seem to tend towards strike loadouts. It's certainly what I would be running if I was a carrier player, which I'm obviously not. I haven't even touched them. Not because I think they're dishonorable or bad or anything, just because I don't think I'd be very good at them. They require sort of RTS skills that I do not have. I'm horrific at RTS games, and I can't micromanage to save my life. Anyway, in my Grim, I have made it down to this corner here without being spotted. The enemy haven't actually pushed anything through the west side, which is kind of unusual. Usually a cruiser or destroyer will come up here. It might be because it's standard battle, and so there's no incentive for them to actually come out here. Usually there's a cap just to my north. They've sent a cruiser up the channel to my east, which is odd, to send somebody up there and then nobody through this side, but I'm not going to complain. It means I can sit here unspotted and wait. Now, my original plan was to ambush that Fuso as it came around the corner, literally just pop up right next to him and torpedo him in the side, at a range where he wouldn't be able to evade my torps at all. But I'm not a patient person, as you've probably realised by now. I'm, in fact, horrifically impatient. And so before the Fuso even gets that close, I decide, fuck this, I'm not going to wait here any longer. I'm going to go out and get in this guy's face. So I hit my speed boost. I wait until the enemy destroyer is tied down by a friendly destroyer. Unfortunately, the friendly destroyer does go down, and the cruiser is also heading back with that destroyer, so I'm going to have to make this quick. The cruiser, an Alba, is nearly dead, but the Mitsuki still has most of his hit points. So I've got to try and get a quick kill on this Fuso here and then deal with the Mitsuki. Now I actually do switch fire to the Mitsuki as I close range with the Fuso. I don't want to shoot my torps from this far out because even though the Fuso is probably not paying attention, he can easily dodge them with just the smallest course change. You can see the Mitsuki's also hit his speed boost there. But his fire is just not accurate. His guns are really not very good. They have a similar slow turning rate to mine, but they just aren't as powerful, and he doesn't have as many. In fact, it looks like he's running the hull upgrade, which takes the Mitsuki down to only 2 turrets, replacing the other 2 with anti-aircraft guns, which are basically useless on a destroyer. There's no real reason to upgrade to anti-aircraft on a destroyer. You shouldn't be using it. I get real close to Fuso. He's locked in an evasive turn, so I do get 3 torps into him there. Obviously he dodged the others, and I'm reloaded just in time to finish him before he can traverse his front 2 turrets onto me.
Enemy battleship foundered.
So that's 1 battleship down, leaving the enemy with only a pair of Wyomings to face off against our 2 Wyomings, a New York, and a New Mexico.
Enemy destroyer blown up.
Down goes a Mitsuki. The Alba was also taken out, which leaves this area of the map clear of ships, just in time for my engine boost to run out. And it looks like that Mitsuki fired a few torps right before he died, but I see them coming and easily evade them. Now the enemy do still have a carrier, and usually he'd be somewhere on their end of the map, but judging by the mini-map and what the enemy team and our team have done, I'd guess the carriers probably run up the 9 and 10 lines towards the north. That's what I would have done if I was him, because I haven't spotted him yet, and so he's either in the bottom right-hand corner or he's run north. Really, he should have run north, because he's at least then behind his teammates. So here we have a Cleveland coming in. I would like to kill this guy as soon as possible. The Cleveland is very good at killing destroyers, and it's very good at killing anything. So I begin to look for a torpedo solution on him. Curiously, he hasn't opened fire yet. I'm well within his range. I think his gun range is like 15-16 kilometers, but he hasn't shot at me yet. And it starts to become obvious that this Cleveland actually knows what he's doing. Most pubby cruisers will drive straight towards you while firing their guns. The reason this guy's not shooting, I suspect, is because he's too busy paying attention to what I'm doing and to his course. He doesn't want to get tunnel visioned and drive into a wall of torpedoes, and so I basically don't have a good torpedo solution because he keeps turning. And as long as I'm not using my torpedoes, then, you know, I'm not going to really be able to do much. Now, I'm not spotted because I will be here in a second. There we go. I wasn't spotted for most of that time, but he knew I was there, and that's why he was zigzagging. Now that I actually open fire, he can see me anyway, so it was the right time to shoot. And I start to look for a torpedo shot here, because he seems to have straightened out his course a bit. But no, he turns again. So I'm going to have to get real close to this guy to deal with him. He's just making it very difficult. I could work him over with my guns, but it would take too long, and at this range, he's only going to miss for so long. Once he starts landing shots, I'm going to be dead very quickly. So I do get in as close as I dare. Of course, his secondaries are now engaging me too. He crits one of my torp tubes, which is very unfortunate. But I do get a spread of 3 torps off, and it looks like those might just clip him. I've also hit my smoke screen to try and give myself at least a little bit of concealment. 1 torp just clipped his bow, the other 2 missed, but if I can get a good hit out of this spread, just 1 good hit should sink him. But it's difficult to predict his course because he's popping in and out of sight as well, thanks to my own smoke screen, and this is something you have to pay attention to in destroyers. You will blind yourself as well as blinding the enemy. However, he doesn't see those torps until it's too late, and is unable to get out of the way, and all 3 hit him. At this point I was worried we were going to lose. The enemy have ships on cap. At this point, I'm still outside the cap because I had to go outside of it to fight the Cleveland, and our own ships are not very well positioned to reset. However, we do have 3 cruisers heading back, so although the enemy now have 3 ships in cap, 2 cruisers and a battleship, our guys can see them and presumably hit them. The enemy carrier is actually keeping me spotted. He's flying his fighters overhead to try and provide vision, so that this guy can come in and get the reset. So that's a smart play on the carrier's part. Unfortunately for him, a half-health Clemson, even a full-health Clemson, really isn't that likely to win a fight against a Yurimiyashi, even one missing half its hit points. Especially if this guy makes really predictable course changes like he is here. I'm able to light him on fire there, but it looks like he's extinguished it right away. I'm not expecting any hits out of these torps, but I fire them off just to discourage him from coming any closer. The further away I can keep him, the less accurate his fire will be. Of course, he's now triggered his own smoke screen, so I can't see him, and I didn't see him drop those. Luckily, I'm able to stop and turn just before that torp hits me. That would have easily killed me. Just about scraped the paint off my bow, but I evade it, and then begin looking for hits on him. While he is in smoke and his ship is hidden, I can still see his shells coming at me, and just guess based on where they're coming from, where he is. At the same time, the enemy carrier tries to dive bomb me and thankfully misses, considering I just triggered my damage control to fix my steering. It looks like the enemy Clemson has managed to beach himself, so it shouldn't be difficult to finish him off. Or at least it wouldn't be if I could aim worth a damn. Down he goes.
We've sunk an enemy destroyer.
And our team is actually in position to get resets now, which is good. You may notice I've also turned my anti-aircraft guns back on. This is because at this point it doesn't really matter. I do flick them back off here, but I wanted to try and discourage the carrier from hovering over me with his fighters anymore, because it was just irritating. I don't like it when carriers do that. I don't like it because it's a good play on their part and it keeps you lit for their team. It's very, very annoying in a destroyer to have one carrier just constantly have fighters tailing you. Especially since destroyers have generally such poor anti-aircraft that you can't really kill them. And it takes a very long time to shoot down even one or two planes. And so there's really not much you can do about it except maybe pop smoke and double back on your course and hope that the planes continue on the direction you are going. The guys who went back to reset have now died, which was pretty much inevitable, fighting against two battleships like that. But they've done their job. We've now got plenty of cap points. The other friendly destroyer has joined me in cap, and the battleship will be here soon. I have no idea where our second battleship is. The player tab there says we have two battleships allied, but I do not see the second one. He must be... No. He'd be on the map if he was still alive, so I don't know. Maybe it's glitched out or something. In any case, his scout plane is keeping the two enemy battleships spotted there. Oh, no, he is. He's up by cap somewhere. He's just not displaying on the minimap for some reason. I don't know why. Nice, easy game. Turns out my impatience paid off.